Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this afternoon's keynote on the very exciting topic of new models for higher education partnerships. Firstly, let's do some introductions before we get into the detail of the overview today. My name is Ryan O'Hare. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Keypath Education. I have the good pleasure of looking after the Asia Pacific region. My background is almost entirely in online education, and Keypath are an OPM. You might be asking what an OPM is. Well, we'll walk you through that in this session. But firstly, let me pass you over to my co-host, Maria.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name's Maria Spies. I'm the co-CEO of Holon IQ. We're a market intelligence platform deep in the education vertical. And we track all the interesting things that are happening in education and edtech and investment. And so I'm really looking forward to unpacking online partnerships and partnerships at university level today with Ryan. I'm going to start off today's presentation just by zooming out a little bit and talking about what's really happening in higher education. If you're in education, and probably you are watching this presentation, you already know that things are changing, definitely in the post-secondary space. There are shifts occurring. And so what we've done is look at the sort of strategic shifts that are underpinning some of these changes, and globally as well, and particularly all through different regions, including the Asian region. New credentials. So shift number one is all about new credentials. We are seeing a shift to more sort of shorter, more flexible credentials from different providers, not necessarily traditional universities. And they're being valued in different ways by learners and by employers. So the first shift is about all new credentials. The second shift is around the way in which education, and particularly post-secondary education, is getting much, much closer to work, the world of work. So higher education, work and skills are increasingly interconnected. They're increasingly being integrated. And this is causing some shifts in the way in which we're starting to think about, for example, degree programs. The third strategic shift is borderless education. And so there are new forms of competition with online learning. The border doesn't necessarily stop where the national borders stop. And so we're seeing new models and public-private partnerships between universities and, for example, OPM organisations and those organisations that help universities go online or do other things. They're becoming much, much more popular. We'll be talking about that in a second. Value chains are starting to change. So competition is changing in higher education. And the last strategic shift is around omni-channel learning. And this is where, really accelerated by COVID, what we're seeing is universities and other higher education providers needing to and wanting to deliver on campus and deliver in hybrid models and deliver online, and sometimes deliver all those three options for students at the same time, so omni-channel. And these are the sort of key things that are swirling around in higher education at the moment. And if we move to the next slide, universities are making big strategic decisions. So they're having strategic conversations about, how do we move into this new world? Do we buy something? Do we build it ourselves, or do we partner? So that sort of classic strategy conversation about buy, build, or partner. There are different circumstances. It depends on, their current levels of capability in digital, for example, or how risk averse they are as to which strategy they go with. But these conversations are being had all around the world. And the one we're concentrating on today is the partner type option for universities. And partnership options, if we just jump onto the next slide, are being had all through the student life cycle, from demand and discovery, and that is thinking about what products universities are going to or what courses they're going to offer, designing those courses for online or hybrid. How do students experience that all through it's not just about what happens in the classroom, but all the things that happen outside the classroom need to be also digital if people are online. And then, of course, the very important part of work and lifelong learning. So if you think about a student life cycle, there are different types of partnerships. So OPMs are one of those types. MOOC MOOC models are also acting as OPMs and helping universities go online. Or, for example, bootcamp models, which is sort of short, intensive, often tech skills related, but not always. And so they deliver those short course options for universities or with universities. So the point here is that there are buy, build, partner decisions to be made. And if partnering, then thinking through the whole life cycle for students and what type of partnerships are available. And when we think about OPMs as one of the biggest sort of partnership types, so jumping onto the next slide, OPMs are online program managers, and they are companies that help universities transition or deliver new or existing courses or programs, degree programs in online formats. This is a very, very fast growing market compared with the whole of higher education. So this circle chart you see here, the very outside ring, the red ring is the size of the global education market, $7.3 trillion. It's very big. Post-secondary education, which is higher education and vocational, $2.3 trillion of that. And then if you look at the whole online degree market, it's $117 billion. And that's growing, growing relatively fast at 17%. But the OPM market is $13.3 billion of that. And that's growing at, something around 20% now. So of all the overall higher education market, online programs are growing the fastest, and in different types of models, the OPM model for online programs is growing even faster. And so this is telling us globally that universities are thinking more strategically about partnering with others in order to accelerate their delivery of online programs. And they're doing that all around the world. So that is a very fast growing market. If we move to the next slide, we've been mapping these partnerships over the decade, really. And you can see on the right-hand chart, I know there's a lot going on in this chart, but if you see the right-hand chart, this is the online program partnerships, so OPM partnerships with universities globally. And I think what's really interesting about this chart, firstly, you can see the shape of it, right? That sort of says it all in terms of the growth. And this means that universities are actively, increasingly opting for partnerships to accelerate their objectives around growth and around servicing their current students, frankly, especially given COVID, of course. But you can see in 2021, year to date, that spike in partnerships, and the green sort of sections there are international. So US has traditionally been a strength, the largest market for these types of partnerships. But over the last couple of years, you can see the shape of the green there is getting bigger and bigger. So the slice of international universities in all different countries around the world are increasingly opting for OPM partners to support them and help them in delivering online learning, as online learning is more in demand from learners, and also as things, events like COVID are pushing universities to deliver in more and more sort of hybrid and online ways. So this section of the presentation tries to give you a bit of a global umbrella overview about what's happening in higher education at the moment, and the role that OPMs are playing and the way in which universities are choosing that model. And now I'm going to hand over to Ryan to deep dive a little bit more.
Thank you, Maria. Fascinating insights, very, very compelling. And I should say you always have such great and powerful visuals and designs. I maybe should have gone first here. Everything I've got to show is always going to look so underwhelming compared to Hold On's data. But nonetheless, I'll try and walk you through what OPMs do. So incredible growth, as Maria has alluded to. Why is this happening? And what do OPMs like ours and so many others bring? So what do they bring to the partnership? Well, I have the good fortune to lead one of those businesses, so I would say lots and lots and lots. But really the intrinsic value of an OPM, I believe, boils down to three things. Firstly, delivering to online students at scale around the world in differing courses, programs, disciplines, time zones, and modalities. That's not the traditional university model that we all know. Most of the universities that we, or all OPMs, work with have a long and illustrious history of face-to-face teaching, of being on campus. They don't necessarily have one with online students. Delivering online well at scale isn't about building some fancy courses and putting them on their LMS. It's about building an infrastructure and an ecosystem to support learners everywhere, from initial interaction to engagement, to access, to quality, to delivery. And so one of the foremost reasons for partnership is actually mitigating a risk on the university's perspective from doing this badly. They don't want to damage their reputation to students all around the world from delivering an underwhelming education experience. And that's where the partnership piece comes in. So both the university and the OPM get to focus on their core competencies. We recognize that we bring individual strengths in intellectual property, as does the university. This is evidenced in many places in the co-creation piece, but especially through the course design process. So the university brings the curriculum, the faculty, the academics, the subject matter expertise, and the OPM brings the intellectual property around the online student, the user experience that they would expect, how to service busy adult learners all around the world, and how to deliver this at scale to thousands and thousands of learners everywhere quickly. The strength is in bringing those two complementary features together. And lastly, and significantly, this is about expansion and growth. OPMs are typically there to drive high volumes of new students into new online programs for the university. This takes significant expertise and investment from a marketing, data, and student recruitment perspective to do so from the outset and over multiple years. So how big is this market, and what proportion of current students are actually undertaking their degrees online? Now, there's a few graphs here. Let me walk you through them. As Maria alluded to, the growth of global OPM partnerships with universities over the last 10 years has been significant, a big spiky line. That is correlated directly with the growth in online-only learners. So let me just clarify. Typically, OPMs work in partnerships with universities on postgraduate programs. That's because we're targeting the working professionals looking to reskill, upskill, or change their career. Online fits better into their lives than giving up time to get to a campus. So I wanted to find a way to highlight that growth and impact, and to do so pre-COVID. That's because there's an assumption, and we hear it often, that online education was invented 18 months ago when a pandemic hit. It may have been for a lot of first-year undergraduates who couldn't quite get to their campus, and they had to learn just like this through a Zoom session. But for the mature-aged learner, that method of learning has been booming for years, especially prior to COVID. Let's take a look at these two graphs. The top one, with the various degrees of blue, illustrates that in the United States, up to 2018, almost 1/3 of all postgraduate learners study their master's degree fully online. In some programmatic areas, like in the MBA, over 70% of degrees are being taken online as opposed to on campus. The bottom graph, my own home country of Australia, where I'm coming to you from this afternoon, where in 2018, again pre-COVID, for the first time in Australian education history, more students decided to commence their postgraduate study online than through going to a campus. That's that dark blue line overtaking the yellow one. The implication there for all academics, faculty, universities going forward is that if you're going to build a new master's degree, you need to assume that the majority of your audience will want to take this online as the preferred mode of study rather than going to your campus. It's quite confronting. Those blue and yellow lines will unlikely ever cross over again. Asia too is fast catching up with this way of partnering. As we know from Maria and Holon's data, and I've taken some liberties, Maria, of stealing some more of your data, the Asia Pac region is the fastest growing region on earth in terms of global attainment and ed tech investment. That investment is not going into improving the traditional bricks and mortar campus-based delivery method. It's going into digital technology-enabled enhanced learning, whether it's in K-12, preschool, tutoring, or in online education. COVID, yes, is absolutely accelerating that, but it was coming anyway. This region is used to using technology and its mobile devices as a means of improving their daily lives. more so again than most other regions on Earth. It's therefore incongruous to us to think that more and more people across Asia Pacific won't think of accessing their education or their learning through many of the same ways that they access their online banking, their Uber, their Grab, or their social media. Universities must keep apace with this. That's where OPMs come in. It's for that reason that we at KeyPath have launched a couple of groundbreaking partnerships in the last 6 months with two incredible institutions like Sunway University and Singapore Institute of Management to grow, scale, and cater to a new type of audience. So who is that new audience? Well, we like to refer to them as the working learner. If we rolled all the students we currently service across Asia, and it's in the tens of thousands, and this would probably be the same for all OPMs, the average age is the 30 to 40-year-old working professional. They're likely married, they likely have family commitments, they are almost certainly working full-time, and their reason for study is to further their career. They're used to fast pace from their family and professional lives, and they expect the same from their education degree. They don't have time to wait, and they want an incredible and highly responsive experience. We conducted significant research into the working adult market across Malaysia over the last 6 months, and that's what these two graphs represent. As you can see from the blue line at the top, the #1 barrier to pursuing further education in any format was work and family commitments. That's what's stopping people from going back into learning. They are busy. Education needs to fit in with their lives. This is where the OPM comes in. We know how to find, support, and service this large audience. The data we have about them and the ways in which they study is incredible. And we use that to collaborate with our university partners to design and deliver compelling experiences. For example, we know that our students typically learn and log in 4 to 5 times per day into their online course for an average of 24 minutes a visit. They don't have time to log into 5 different systems. They don't have time to wait for feedback. They don't have time to access their password. They don't have time to wait for an instructor to respond to them. Their expectations are of responsiveness and high quality user experience. They may be doing this on the train. They may be doing it on their lunch break after their kids have gone to bed. Often we face the concept or the thought that students get 4 hours on a Sunday to sit down and do their online learning and want to watch a lot of recorded videos. Nothing could be further from the truth. And why is that? Well, because of this. Working professionals, many of whom may have completed their undergraduate degree 15 to 20 years ago, and who are used to working for leading global businesses where technology is a part of their everyday life, they simply don't compare their online study to their face-to-face one. They'll compare it to every other digital experience in their life. They're highly unlikely to be choosing between doing a degree online and doing it on campus. They'll either choose to do the degree online or not at all. The competition for online is not on campus. It's the other parts of screen time that we all access in our daily lives. And if it's not compelling, then they'll simply switch off. Which brings us to the last value in the partnership, the co-creation and leveraging of the university and the OPM's strengths. The job is to excite, to engage, to retain, and to motivate learners, not to give them a PDF on a screen. To give them something that initially wows them is important. What's more important is that you're able to deliver on the learning outcomes they need to further their careers. That's where we work intensively with academics to ensure that not only do they get the user experience that they want, but they get the skills that they need, we can assess it, and that the student can take it back into their workplace to further their career. We do this in collaboration with the university to ensure that hundreds and thousands of students we're able to attract to our online programs get an experience that someone in 2021 should expect. So in summary, OPMs help universities think about scale in a model and to an audience that they're not typically attracting. And we mitigate the risk in doing so. As the data shows, this is increasingly how learners, especially how working adults, want to learn around the world. We're able to attract and recruit large numbers of new students from everywhere because they know the brand is what they want, but also that the flexibility of learning on their terms and the experience they're going to get is compelling. And like most OPMs, we've got the global presence and expertise around the world to service high quality universities and help them go online at scale in a way that furthers their brand, opens access to a new type of learner, and grows their student offering. So thank you for your time, for the opportunity to introduce this compelling and growing new model. And we look forward to continuing the discussion and tracking the growth of the OPM model across Asia in the months and years to come. I think both Maria and I are pretty confident that the growth is going to be significant. Hope
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.